Alright, what's going on, guys? It's YJ, and today I'm going to talk about the time that I fell in a drain while Easter egg hunting. Now, this was last Easter, and you know those days you have where you wake up and you're just like feeling yourself? Like, you know you're going to look good today, you're going to kill the day, and everything's going to be easy. I was having one of those days. I had a flannel on, I had some new joggers I just bought. I was killing the game right now, right? So, I always have Easter at my grandparents' house, which was a really big house. They had an indoor pool. It was like kind of a one-floor house, but it went, and they had like, I think, 3.5 acres or something. But, so it was crazy. And so they hid Easter eggs all over her lawn. And so my sister and me are older. My sister's 18 and I'm 14. So we both had harder eggs to find, and then I have a cousin who's like 3 now, so he had easier eggs, and they're all sorted by color. So our eggs were really hidden, and his wasn't. So me and my sister went out. We're like, all right, let's go Easter egg hunting. Me and my sister love chocolate. We were gonna go kill it. And so my little cousin finds all his eggs nice and easy. They were in like a bush, and his eggs were like yellow, and ours were like green. So you know, it gets pretty difficult. But, so I found one egg, and it was really hidden, actually. It was behind this bush, and it was tucked sort of into the dirt, so I couldn't see it. And I couldn't find the rest of my eggs. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking, trying to find these eggs, right? And I see this kind of cement drain sticking out of this tree stump, which my grandpa has. It was kind of like a step stool, but bigger. It was like, yeah, and I've stood on this before as a kid. Like, I've always been at my grandparents' house growing up, and so I went to step on it, you know, me being the dumbass I am, and the wood wasn't strong because it had rained previously before. So when I stepped on it, it was damp, and it just collapsed from under me. And this hole was deep, dude. Like, it was about 2 feet deep, if that makes any sense. It doesn't sound that bad, but I was also like 5'9" at the time. And I fell in so awkwardly because I didn't get to stand 2 feet on it. I only got 1 foot in there, right? So my 1 foot goes in deep. My other one gets kind of pulled up towards my chest, and it hits the edge of the drain. So my knee was scraped, right? And my thumb, as I was falling, I tried to put it out, and my thumb got caught in the dirt that was surrounding it while I was falling, but it didn't move as I was falling. So like it just went straight into the dirt and stayed there, and I continued falling. So my thumb completely bent backwards, and so I was like, okay, I know my thumb is broken. In my head, I was like, my thumb is broken. I am done for, well, because spring was up. I was done for hockey season, and I just knew. And so my sister sees this, and she runs over to me. She's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm in a freaking drain. I'm not okay. Get me out of here. So she grabs my good hand, pulls me out, and my mom was near the indoor pool. So I go over towards my mom, and I'm like, Mom, my thumb's broken. We need to go to the hospital right now. And she's like, okay, honey, because as a kid, I used to embellish all the time and, like, be dramatic. Like, I'd fall off my bike and be like, oh, my God, my ankle's broken. And my ankle, I was walking on it 10 minutes later. But so my mom's like, okay, honey. And I'm like, Mom, I think my thumb is broken. And she's like, okay. She turns around. She keeps talking to my grandpa. They're just chatting away. And I'm like, Mom, I think my thumb is broken. She's like, okay. And so I go in the house. I'm like, Mom's not going to do anything. So I go find my dad. I'm like, Dad, my thumb is, like, broken. Can we go to a hospital? And he's like, what'd you do? And I was like, I fell in this drain or something. And he's like, what drain? He's like, show me. And I'm like, we don't have time for this. And he sees my knee is bleeding, like, all the way down my leg through my pants. And he's like, oh, shit, you are. And I'm like, I'm not joking. Look at my thumb. And my thumb was, like, swollen, like baseball, and kind of rotated. So I thought I dislocated it or broken. It was broken or something. And my dad looks at me, and I was pale. Just absolutely pale. Nothing else but white was on my face. So my dad sits me down, and he's like, we need to take your pants off to see your knee. And I'm like, hell no. Because we were, like, in the middle of a family gathering. Like, My auntie was there, my grandparents were surrounding me, my uncle, my little cousin, my sister. And I'm like, you are not taking off my pants. He's like, do you want your knee to be fine, or do you want just it to be infected? And I'm like, oh, fine. So they take off my pants, and I'm like completely uncomfortable with this. And my knee is like gashed open. And so my dad's like, all right, we need to get you to a hospital. There's a hospital like 10 minutes away. Let's go. So we get in the car and we go. And there's like this long ass wait. But when you get to an ER, you have to tell a lady at the front desk what happened. And she like takes forever. She's like typing. She's like, what's your name, honey? And I'm like, and I told her my name. And she's like, okay, so what happened? I was like, I fell in a drain. She's like, you fell in a drain? Now, how did this happen? I was like, I was Easter egg hunting. She goes, oh, yeah, we've been having lots of those today. And I'm like, really? And she goes, no, you're the first. And I'm like, this is not the time to be funny. Can I get admitted into this hospital already? And she's like, okay. And they get me in. We have to wait for a doctor. And so before you get to a doctor, they have to take x-rays on your thumb. And so we go to the x-ray room. And let me tell you, if you have any broken bone and they need to take x-rays, get ready to scream. I couldn't move my thumb at this point. Like, every time I tried to move it, there would just be sharp pain. This guy took my hand. He's like, all right, now put it here. And I tried. And then he's like, oh, no, a little over. I'm like, I can't. He took my thumb, pushes it over, and he's like, hold it there. And I'm like, wincing. And he takes the picture. He's like, all right. And he rotates my hand around and he's like, all right, now press your thumb into the desk. And I'm like, okay. I shove my thumb into the desk, and he's like, no, not like that. He takes my hand and just presses it as hard as, and he just shoves my hand into this desk. And I'm like biting my tongue as hard as I can and looking at my mom. My mom's like, you can do this, honey. And it was a terrible experience. But so we get out of there. We have to wait another hour for frickin' the x-rays to come back. And then this doctor comes over and he's like, all right, we saw your x-rays. Now can you come into my office? So we follow him to his office. He talks to us. He's like, all right, so the x-rays show that your thumb is not broken. It isn't fractured, it isn't cracked, it isn't broken. But what I'm worried about is your UCL. And I'm like, what's my UCL? And he's like, your ulnar collateral ligament. I still can't say it to this day. And he's like, basically what this ligament is it's the ligament that attaches your thumb to your hand. So without this ligament, you'd be able to bend your thumb all the way down to your wrist. Like, not like how people do it, but a lot more flexible. Like, basically your thumb would just dangle. And he's like, and I'm like, how does this not come up on the x-ray? And he's like, see, ligaments don't show up on certain x-rays. You have to take a different x-ray for the ligament. And he's like, we can't do this today, so I'm going to give you a hand specialist, and you're going to go there, and you're going to go see him. So we're like, okay. And we go home, and we go see the hand specialist. And this hand specialist was a doctor named Dr. Lee, I think. And whatever you're thinking in your head probably looks like him. Like, he looks like a Lee. But, so he grabs my thumb, like, gently. Not, like, rips it. But he just takes a hold of my thumb, and he starts moving it around. He starts rubbing the ligament. And he's like, and I'm, like, wincing again. He's like, all right, so you definitely have a torn UCL. He's like, I don't know how bad it is. So he takes x-rays, and he looks, and he's like, all right, this is a stage 3 tear. And he's like, there's 4 stages. Stage 1, sort of stretched. Stage 2, it's getting there. And stage 3, it's kind of like torn, but it's not fully torn. And stage 4, completely torn, needs surgery. So he's like, all right, so we're going to give you a specialized hand cast, which is like Iron Man type shit, where they mold this, I forget what the material is, but they mold it to your hand, and it, like, outlines your hand, and it's so cool, and it's really cool. And so he's like, come back in 6 weeks, and we'll go from there. So I go back in 6 weeks, and he grabs my thumb, and he's like, oh, let's move it. So I start moving it, and he's like, you have a really good range of motion. Have you been using it? I'm like, I played a hockey game last night. And he's like, you what? And I was like, yeah, my thumb was feeling a lot better. I wore the cast under my glove. And he's like, that was a risky idea. And he's like, did you win? And I was like, yeah, I scored 3 goals. He goes, he gives me a pound, and he's like, all right, you guys are good to go. Pay your fees at the door, and you're good. And I'm like, thank God. And so we get out of the hospital. My mom buys me ice cream as a celebratory victory of not losing my thumb. And yeah. Alright, so this story is about the time that I gashed my elbow open. And so I'm going to start it off by, it was the first day of school. I was so excited. I just love going back to school, not for the school part, but just to see my friends. And so we get there. I rode my brand new bike I got. It was a Walmart BMX bike with double pegs on both wheels. Those things were death traps back in the day. But so I'm going to school, and I get to school, and I see all my friends. My friends are all freaking out about my bike. They're like, oh my god, it's so good. How much was it? And I'm like, oh, it was $250. I'm like pretending to be a baller. And yeah, so we get into class, and for the first day of school, you rotate all 4 teachers because you don't get your permanent teacher yet. For elementary school, that is. But so I wanted this one teacher named, I forget what her name is now, but so I really wanted her so bad. And in her class, she noticed me, and she's like, I want this student because I like made a good first impression. So I was, after that was the last class of the day, but so after that, I was in a good mood. I was like ripping home, I was dancing on my bike, and the way I get home from school is there's this one street that just goes straight down. Like I live straight down. I live in between the 2 schools I went to. But so I rip down, and then there's this big steep hill, and then it goes flat. And so I was just ripping. I was in the middle of the road because, I didn't want to hit anybody on the sidewalk. But so I get to the bottom of the hill. I'm still flying. I'm dancing away because I'm in a good mood. And all of a sudden, my chain gets really loose. And I went to pedal one more time, and I guess when your chain comes undone, you lose all of that resistance it had before, so my foot just slams right down to the ground, and I throw myself over the handlebars. Dude, that was the scariest moment of my life, getting thrown over the handlebars. But okay, so I hit the ground, start skidding, I can hear my bike, there's a car in front of me who hit the brakes, and I'm just skidding at this point. And I look down, I scrape my elbow off, it wasn't bleeding or anything. Get up, pick my bike, move it over to the side, lie down for a minute because I was in pain. And I look down back at my elbow, and it's just covered in blood. Like freaking gory Chucky 2 blood. And my mom was coming home early that day so we could go to hockey. So my mom comes home, I get in the house because it was like across the street from my house. That was the funny part. But so I get over to my house, call my mom. I'm like, Mom, you need to come home right now. She's like, I was just about to leave. I was like, I fell off my bike. I'm bleeding. And she's like, okay. So she rushes home, grabs my elbow, squirts this disinfective, stinging stuff in my arm. I'm screaming. I didn't cry. I'm proud of myself. But I'm screaming. Shit hurts. And my mom puts me in a sling after we get it all bandaged up. And we go to the walk-in. My elbow wasn't broken. The doctor was like, oh, how'd you do this? And I was like, I was biking. He's like, this is a really bad bike accident. You're very lucky you didn't scratch your face. And I'm like, yes, I am. Thanks, doctor. And he's like, all right, I'm just going to give you some gauzes. Give us gauze, tape to wrap my elbow, because I taped a gauze to my elbow and then wrapped it in the wrap you get when you sprain your elbow or your ankle or something. And we walk out, and I had my arm in a sling, and I went to get in the car, and I wasn't very smart back then, I guess. And I just jumped into my car, because I was like, yeah, I got the day over and done with, and I smacked my elbow exactly where I cut it on the door, and I just, I get in the car, my mom's like, and my face was, not white, but when it's the face of, pain's about to hit. Mom's like, what'd you do? And I was like, I just smacked my elbow on the door, and I'm like, it really stings, and she's like, you're so dumb. Yeah, I love my mom, man. But yeah, that's going to end it here. Enjoy the rest of this solve. I'm going to upload a review of the Yan 3 after this. So stay on the lookout for that. But yeah, thanks for watching.